Transcribing videos can seem really complicated and intimidating if you've never done it before, but it really doesn't have to be. And when you combine the potential ease with the impact that providing transcripts and captions can have on videos and training, you really should be putting in the work to do it. And so today what I want to do is compare 3 different transcription services so that you can, have some idea of which direction to go when it comes to getting started with transcribing your videos. Let's get started. If this is your first time on the channel, I'm Matt Jertson. I'm a former instructor pilot and was the head of learning and development at SpaceX, and I now run a learning and development consulting company that helps organizations of all sizes have more impact with their employee training. If you find what you see today helpful, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss a future video. Now, I'm not going to lie, there are a lot of different tools out there for video transcription, so I'm not even going to pretend that I have used them all. But what I want to walk through today are 3 that I have used and compare them so that you can have some idea of which might work best for your particular situation. As we look at them, we're going to compare them on 3 basic metrics. We're going to look at the speed of how quickly you get the transcription. We're going to look at the amount of post-processing work that they do, and specifically by that, I mean removing ums, duplicate words, that kind of thing. And then we're finally going to look at the ease of editing that you make when you go in and look at the transcription, because some of them can be harder than others. We could also compare the accuracy of them, but in my experience, accuracy on all of these platforms is actually pretty good and maps really well to the post-processing effort. And so when it comes to accuracy, basically everything is getting all the basic words right. And the only question is, how good are they at recognizing acronyms, specific terms to your industry, and proper nouns? And generally, if they're doing a decent amount of the post-processing work, getting rid of the ums, that kind of thing, then they're going to be pretty good at recognizing acronyms and particular words. But overall, the basic language of it is pretty standard across the board from what I have found. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We're going to get started with Descript. Now, if you've never heard of it before, Descript is a relatively new video editing tool. For our purposes, I just have a short 1-minute video clip that I'll drag and drop in here, and then we can right-click and get it to start transcribing the file. In just a second, it'll pop up with a little message asking us, if there are, how many speakers there are. I can just hit done, and it'll start chewing on it. You can notice it says preparing 10%. So we'll just let it run for however long it takes in order to get that transcript. Okay, now we have the transcript up so we can start to look at it. And the first thing that you immediately notice is that it didn't do a lot of that post-processing work, right? We still have all of these ums. We have a few duplications, the first thing, the first. So it's all there, right? It transcribed it relatively quickly, but there's still a lot of work that I'm going to have to do. And then here's the thing, particularly with Descript, that is tricky, is the editing. Let's say I want to remove this you might think I just hit, select in here and hit backspace, but that actually doesn't do anything. What it does is select the word, and then I have to hit correct, and then I can delete the and hit correct. But notice now it just removed exactly what I had selected. And so if you really want to make edits, you kind of have to select this whole section and click correct. And then I have to go in and say, okay, it's even proving difficult to go in here and say, I want to get rid of all of that and hit correct. So for me, that's one of the more challenging things that I've found with Descript, is that though it works pretty quickly, the actual editing takes quite a bit of time because of the interface. Now, one nice thing about Descript is that you can download it for free and use it for free. And with that free subscription, you get a limited amount per month of transcription. So if you're not doing transcription very often, or you just want to get started with playing around with it, this might be a good way to get started. Then once you have your transcript already, you can of course go publish it, export, and then there's the transcript option, the subtitles if you want that. If you are exporting subtitles, of course, if you're just getting started, make sure you know what file type the software you're using takes. One of the more common types is .srt, but particularly if you're using Articulate Rise, that takes VTT. So just know what to export so that it's ready to go for whatever you're going to use it for. Okay, so that's Descript. So now we can close that and move on to Premiere. Now, Premiere obviously does a whole lot of stuff. It's a very popular video editing tool. I already have that same exact file listed in here. Now, if you want to get started with transcription, first you need to have the text window up, which I already do. I have it available right here. So if I go over and click text, and I just want to transcribe the sequence, of course, this is going to ask me, which audio track to use. Are there multiple speakers, that kind of thing. I don't care about that because it's just me. So I can just hit transcribe. Give it a few seconds to do its thing. It's going to transcribe everything right here. I kind of like the format of this over Descript just because it gives me a very real sense of how much progress there is on the transcription file. I will say it seems to be going a decent amount faster than Descript did. So I think from the speed point of view, this is probably winning out. And then as I start to look at the script, I notice that it really did, it did some of that post-processing work where it removed a lot of those ums. So that's great. But it does still have some of this duplication and what I mean by. So it still has some of that. So it did a fair amount of the work. And then if I want to edit this, all I do is I double click on it and say, I want to remove one of these what I mean by's. So I select all that, backspace, click out. And now it's fixed. So a lot simpler in terms of actually making the edits to the transcript over Descript, in my opinion. So it was probably faster. It's doing a fair amount more of the post-processing, and it's easier to make those changes. Of course, it's in Premiere, right, which isn't exactly a cheap product. So if you're not doing video editing, you're probably not going to be using, this product for that. But if you are doing video editing, it is really, because I'll admit, before this, I was using a different video editing tool, and then I was going into Descript in order to get the transcripts, and then I would push those transcripts into the videos. It's really nice here that it's all built in. So those are two different tools, Descript and Premiere. What if we go to a service that is specific just to transcription? And that's where we go to Rev.com. If you've never seen Rev.com before, it's great for making transcriptions, closed captions, and for translations. And the translations are actually pretty good. Starts at $1.50 a minute, goes up to, depending on the language that you're using, if you're trying to translate, it can get pretty expensive. One thing to note about Rev.com is that when you go to place a new order and transcribe something, you have two different options. You have human transcripts and auto transcripts. The auto transcripts are just, it's pure AI. They're just looking at it, giving you the transcript, and then you can do what you will with it. Whereas the human ones, they do the AI, and then a person actually looks at it. So the thing to note is that with human transcripts, it's really quick. You can get it. Probably not as fast as Premiere because it's actually going off to a service rather than just doing it on your computer. But it is, in the order of minutes that you're going to get a transcription back depending on how big that file is. The human transcripts do take a little bit longer. Like no matter how small it is, I actually already ordered these, as you can see here. This one I probably ordered 20-ish minutes ago. And for bigger files, if I'm, this is just for a 1-minute video. If I'm doing something bigger, it might take a couple hours for you to get it back. So just something to be aware of. Another thing to note is the price of these things. So if we go to auto transcripts just to kind of like see the pricing here, I drop this in, it loads it, it knows it's a little over a minute. So it's 50 cents for this 2-minute clip, because it's a little over a minute, so it called it 2 minutes. So it's about 25 cents a minute, whereas the human transcriptions are more expensive. They're $1.50 a minute in total. So again, if you have big videos, it can cost a decent amount of money. But if you're not doing video editing, you're just trying to get the transcripts of videos that you already have, then this is a great service to use. So let's go ahead and go back and look at the actual transcription files, see what they came up with. So let's look at the AI one first. We click on that and we can see that, again, I see an here. I think there's another one here. So it's not removing duplication. So this looks a lot to me like what we saw in Descript. It's just pretty quick and dirty. Still helpful that it's there, but it's not doing a lot of that post-processing work. And then if you want to make changes, you can just click on the text and really simply make any edits that you want. So really easy to edit. So very similar in terms of post-processing is what we got with Descript, but I would say that editing is probably a little bit easier. Now let's go back. Take a look at the human one. So again, this is something where AI did the first pass and then a person did the second pass. Let's open this up. When I look at this transcript, I find that it removed the ums. It added some ... dots when I had longer pauses, which that's kind of neat. And notice here, it removed that duplication, right? And again, this is what you get when a person is actually looking at this and reading through it. And what should this say? Does this make sense? So when it comes to the amount of post-processing work that they are doing, definitely the highest level. I actually have put in, whole chunks of, 5-10 minute videos and had to make no edits to it at all. But if you do need to make an edit, again, you just click on it, delete, and that kind of thing. So really simple to edit, really high quality, but this is going to be the most expensive and it's going to take the longest. So it really just depends on what your situation is, because though it's the longest and the most expensive, I have had instances where this really makes sense. If I am transcribing from video that's not a official presenter or something that's scripted, where there are a lot of conversational pauses, duplicate words, all that stuff. I'm transcribing a webinar or a lunch and learn from just a person out in the company. This really, really helps. I can't tell you the amount of time that I've spent going through a transcript from one of those situations. And so when you're weighing those options, right, of is it worth the money? If something is going to cost $20 for you to transcribe it, but it's saving you an hour of post-processing effort, maybe it's worth it. It just depends. It depends on the situation, but just something to keep in mind. So I hope you found that comparison helpful. Again, we compared Descript, which is a relatively new video editing tool, Adobe Premiere, which is of course a well-known video editing tool, and then a specific transcription service of Rev.com. The one that's right for you is going to depend on your situation, but there are clearly quite a bit of differences between the amount of post-processing done, how long it takes to get the file, and the ease of editing once you have that transcription to work with. So I hope you found this video helpful. Again, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you did, and that way I will see you next time.